Welcome to another episode of Read the Room, Mr. Cochran. How are you?
Oh, just living the dream out here in the cold and wintry snow winter land. I said winter too many times. Northern Arizona. It's cold.
Yeah. Thank God you're not in Iowa, though.
Mm, or shame on me for not being in Iowa.
Right. My father-in-law, who lives in Wyoming, my wife's entire side of the family lives there. He is giddy as heck because he can go ice fishing.
Oh, nice.
He's like, oh, it's finally cold enough to freeze the ice, And I'm like,
I
oh,
love a little
Grandpa.
ice fishing. I've never
Yeah.
been, but
Well,
glad
he's
that's on the
uh
bucket list.
he's the fish whisperer for sure. He's amazing.
Fish whisperer.
Yeah, we call him the fish whisperer.
That's quite a title.
He just stands by the bank and goes like that, and they just jump right in his creel. You know,
I
it's
hope they put
unbelievable.
that on his headstone.
We might, we might. We may just do that. We never know. We never know. So we've had some interesting times in the last week, both in the world of politics and in the world of sports, and changing it up a little bit from what I uh, set this up to talk about. This, for me, in both places, it's all about the end of an era. The end of an era with certain politicians and their kids and their behavior, and sadly, in the world of sports too. And I want to kind of walk through that with you today on the show. What do you think about that?
Well, I've got plenty to say, so
As always, that's good. You know, Starting with politics and the methadone addicted uh, child actor Hunter Biden and his adorable little stunt in the oversight committee earlier this week. It is typical, classic addicted behavior. You can't stay away from the thing that either should repel you or causes you to want more of it and increases your addicted behavior. When that clown showed up, uh, and I'll walk you through some of the details. When that clown showed up for 20 minutes with these two bozo lawyers, one of them who's a Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey DC lawyer, Abby Cohen, who's worthless as tits on a bull, and his sugar daddy lawyer, who, by the way, was the lawyer for Trey Parker and his partner for South Park for a long time. That's where he made his Do Re Mi. I mean, I kind of can't fault him a little bit because he's putting on his little Hollywood hat and running somebody around with a iPhone 15 and a cute little camera rig, following a attic boy around. But when they showed up, you knew that the mockery that he and his family believe is the U.S. Congress was on full display. It was just absolutely pathetic. And it's funny too because the hearing isn't televised until they gavel in and the chairman is ready to start speaking. So C-SPAN doesn't turn on their cameras, and the internal House admin people don't turn the cameras on. And so the Secret Service had to come in, right?
mm-hmm.
And sweep the room usually about a half an hour before the principal arrives. And so that's when staff and members, especially Chairman Comer, knew that something was up. I mean, you don't have Secret Service walk into a hearing room for no reason.
Mm-hmm.
And so they had an advanced heads up without being truly surprised that this clown was going to show up. So it was interesting. But your thoughts on that? Give me your real world man on the street thoughts on that theatrical display.
Well, it was gross for one. Um, Part of me enjoyed the entertainment because what he was doing was just giving a giant middle finger to the government, which all of us have wanted to do from time to time. But knowing who he is, what he stands for, and the importance of what they were doing, like to be that arrogant, to literally come to the hearing about holding you in contempt, to sit in the front row for no other purpose than to film a scene for
Mm-hmm.
your documentary. I can't believe they allowed his camera people in there. Like, it just shows what a theatrical joke our government has become because they allowed it to happen. They allowed it to happen. And here's the thing, obviously, the cameras were going to be on. Obviously, it's great TV to allow him to be in there. It's just one more way that we get this insight to exactly who the Bidens are. Like, he does not care. This dude
No,
has no fear. He
no.
knows daddy is going to wipe clean all of his charges when he's a lame duck, which is why I want to see them drag this case out past the 2024 elections so that he doesn't have the opportunity to have that happen. Am I mistaken? Can the
Well,
president actually wipe clean an ongoing litigation?
well, they can pardon him, which we all expect will happen, right?
Yes.
But a Republican attorney general in a Republican administration, and that's why I love your insight as uh, a non DC insider. You're not corrupted by that horse shit. Is a new administration with a new attorney general can look back at what he wasn't charged with and recharge him.
But wouldn't it behoove those who want justice to draw this out? Like, I know that the idea is we
Yeah.
nail him to the cross and sink the Biden campaign finally. Like, that's supposed to be the big nail in the cross. But if you actually want justice, wouldn't you want to delay his sentencing or his what the judge and the people want? Hopefully the
there's
judge.
there's three there's about three things there. One is if you're making a documentary, you want as much content and B-roll as you can get, right?
Yeah.
So the C-SPAN B-roll, they can pay a fee for it and get it. They're not a news organization; they're a production entity, so they'll have to pay a fee to get it. Second, the not guilty plea in the LA federal court yesterday, he's going to have
And the
right. So you're
you froze up right there. So
oh, did I? Where did I freeze up at?
at the end of the C-SPAN.
Okay, so the C-SPAN thing, they'll pay for. They'll get that as part of content. They'll continue to film content, blah blah blah, throughout the remainder of the year. Quite frankly, yesterday he pleaded not guilty in L.A. federal court to the tax evasion charge, and he will ensure that in July and August it will be stretched out, possibly into September, depending on the docket of the federal court in Los Angeles, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so they'll get to film all that and all that wonderful stuff. and his old man loses, let's say, most likely. He pardons the kid in December. Uh, the new administration can look at that pardon and reverse it if they want to. They can also look at charges that weren't filed that should have.
You're frozen again. So what I'm hearing is they can either look at old charges or reverse the pardon. Now, the problem I have with the pardon
That
reversing,
again.
I said it sounds like, and he's back. So, it sounds like there's two options. They can look at the things that he didn't get charged with, or they
Mm-hmm.
can reverse the pardon. Now, the reversing the pardon thing sounds a little bit dangerous because that sets up a new precedence. We're in this time of tit for tat.
Well,
So, as much as I would like to see, I mean, this would be a situation where it would be justified, but that one act will be weaponized from here on out. In America has to be prepared when calling for that, the long term
fortunately,
consequences.
well, unfortunately, it will be weaponized. But shall I shall I count the number of legal precedents that Joe Biden has set in the 3 years he's been president? I mean, I just read again this morning that he's going to ignore the Supreme Court and accelerate the canceling of student debt. The Supreme Court already told him he doesn't have the authority twice, and
Yeah.
he's doing it anyway. So this clown and these bozos in this administration are setting precedent ad infinitum.
Yeah, it's a pretty bad cleanup job that's going to have to happen, and it sucks that we have gotten to this point because there are things that need to happen,
Come on, boys.
and it's going to be it's going to be rocky for a little while. I don't know how we recover in the short term. It could get a lot uglier before it gets a lot better.
I couldn't agree more, and I think sadly for the American public and for America in particular, we're going to be forced to witness it. You know,
Yeah,
I mean, this guy's what is he? 53 years old, Rick. He knows right from wrong. He's been brought up in politics. He knows decorum. He understands all that. He was actually even
dude, the guy, the guy is complete degen. Like, there's
yeah.
nothing other to say about him than he's a complete degenerate. And I have pity for people in his position normally. He's had his chances, and for whatever reason, he can't break free of his family, who's probably keeping the hooks in pretty good. But at some point, as an addict, you have to think of yourself first. Like, it's the only time in your life where you can 100% think of only yourself. You have to. You can't think of what your mom wants, your dad wants, your wife wants, your girlfriend wants, your mistress wants, your kids want, nothing. Because if you're really looking to clean up your life, the only goal or the only objective of cleaning up your life, you cannot do it for other people. You cannot take strength from other people. You have to figure out a way to do it yourself. Now, you can rely on AA groups or CA groups, NA groups, whatever the
Mm-hmm.
case may be. You
Right.
can rely on your sponsor who will hold you in check, but you cannot cannot do it for other people, and you must break yourself free of all contacts that have led you to that place. You have to basically go into a, a safe house essentially. Cut out contact with everybody you know, love until you can viably reform your brain. Because
Yep.
right now his brain is not healed. He's still doing blow. He's still screwing prostitutes. Like I can
100%.
see it. I know the tell signs. I know the tell signs of somebody who's still in their addiction, and he's getting terrible, terrible advice from terrible people who have not his best interest in mind, but the
Nope.
family's best interest in mind. And when the family's best interest comes before, and you see, you hold up the money sign, and that's 100% true. He's being held in his addiction
Mm-hmm.
for money. Like he has to lay himself bare and understand, if I have nothing, not my name, not my cars, not my women,
Come here.
that I will be okay. But he is a Biden, so he cannot do that. Mommy and daddy will not let him do that, because if he goes, the family goes. And when you're in a position like Hunter Biden, I've been in these positions. Like
Mm-hmm.
you have to understand, like, you did the crime, now you have to do the time. Like you have to understand, look, this is the only way out. Like I have to take all of the consequences that I have been skirting and avoiding to clean my slate. If
Yep.
that means 1 year, if that means three, five, whatever. Doesn't mean you can't use help, legal help, but you have to be willing to answer honestly the consequences of your actions. And until he can do that, until he finds a way to do that, which he never will,
It's not going to happen.
he never, ever will.
And you know why? In part, is he is not a serious person. He has never been held to a standard to become a serious person. He has gone through the senator's son rule book of looking a certain way, schooling, educating a certain way. I love my boy. This is Dash. Say hello to Rick. Say hello to Uncle Rico, Dashy.
Dude, and you bring up a good point. He loves the lifestyle.
Well,
He
think,
loves jet setting and
yeah,
screwing random beautiful
yeah,
women that do it as a business transaction.
yeah.
He
Except he
loves
has,
doing drugs.
yeah, except he has no talent. That's
Yeah,
all.
he
All he
loves
has
the
is his last
thrill.
name, and it's sad. Sorry, it's sad, but it is what it is, right? So he's
Eh,
gone through the rule book, and remember the meme I sent out on Instagram the other day from FU Golf that said the quote from Tiger Woods. I signed with Nike, and I wanted to fuck. Now I'm playing golf, and I'm not with Nike, right?
Yeah,
Except he doesn't have any talent. He just has a last name. He's gone through the little senator's son rule book. He is in Hollywood, Rick. We're almost as bad at, actually it is worse than being in Las Vegas. He's with a Hollywood lawyer, not a corporate lawyer who's serious. He's got a shill for a DC lawyer who, by the way, is Senator Menendez's lawyer, was Jack Abramoff's lawyer, and Menendez is going to prison. Abramoff went to prison for 6 years, and he better be asking Abby Lowell how long he's going to have to go behind bars with sans wiping the slate clean from his old man, right? Because he's in serious trouble.
Yeah.
However, he's never had been held to account, and that's why he has this same addictive behavior.
Yeah, and he's a thrill junkie. He
Yeah.
loves the limelight. He loves the thrill, the exposure. He loves knowing that he's getting to
Love you,
get
buddy.
one up on the government,
Mm-hmm.
on all of his haters. He loves it. He
Yep.
thrives off it. And I'd like to think that he goes to jail for a couple years and is able to reform like some criminals are able to do,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't see it.
Now the problem is he would get pardoned, or he will get pardoned if he's sentenced. If he were to go to prison, which could work well for him, he would go to what's called a camp, or a minimum security facility with basically a fence. There's no guard towers with guns, things like that. It's like Cap Cupcake in West Virginia, where they sent in Cumberland, Maryland, or West Virginia, where they sent Martha Stewart,
Yeah.
and he's there for a couple of years, and then he's out, and then he writes a book and the whole 9 yards. But I want to point out, and this is something I know you can totally relate to, is when he walked out of the Rayburn office building, the committee hearing room on the first floor. Um, Jackie Heinrich, I believe it was the Fox News reporter that was asking him questions. And he goes, "Do you have a dad? Does he ever call you on the phone?" So he admitted that his old man called him in the middle of business meetings, or vice versa, right?
Yeah.
Or answered the phone, dialed the phone. So there you go. I mean, when you look at his face and you look at his addictive, twitchy, I need a hit behavior, um, I knew right then, even more than I already know because of inside information that I have, that the guy is still an addict, and he's still doing all the crap that he's been doing before. Nothing's changed.
Yeah.
So all
And
these enablers aren't helping him.
I want to correct you. It's actually Hillary Vaughn, not
Hillary
Jackie
Vaughn. There
Heinrich.
we go. It wasn't Jackie Heinrich.
One
Right.
of the other blonde bombshells of the famous blondes of Fox News.
Right.
But my favorite part was the guy who managed to get in. Hey, Hunter, what type of crack do you smoke? I was like, oh my God. Who was there that got that question off? Because it comes in so perfectly.
Yeah.
And his response, like if I'm Abby Lowell, I would have thrown a muzzle on him right there, because what he essentially did was admit finally, without question, from the mouth of Hunter Biden, that yes, his dad was on the phone with him
Yep.
while he was doing business.
Sure enough. Breaking news.
Breaking news. Open, closed, like there's no he said, she said. It's finally verified. Not Devin
Mm-hmm.
Archer saying it's happened, from the mouth of Hunter Biden. He
Yep.
admitted it. And that was devastating to his case.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And all
It doesn't
because he
help.
wasn't prepared. He was just doing his documentary thing and thought he could go in there. Maybe it was planned. I don't know.
I will tell you. I will tell you. I don't know that question. If that question was planned, I think that's either from some Rebel News questioner, or air quotes reporter on the right, or some I would say Vice News, but they're no longer in business. But some leftist
No,
reporter on the left. But
I'm
you know,
talking about the question from Hillary Vaughn.
Oh yeah, that one too. That one was legit.
Like that was a
That one was
legit
legit.
question, and he legit answered her,
Mm-hmm.
"Do you have a dad?"
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I was on the phone with him.
Yeah. Did you see how jittery he looked and just addicted? Like he's just like completely needs to go in an SUV and take a hit off a crack pipe.
Yeah, he looked strung out,
Yeah.
like a serious addict who can't go an hour without a fix.
No.
Like that's what he looked like. And it's a dark fucking place to be. Pardon my French. It's a real dark place to be when he's no longer enjoying his addiction. His addiction has full control of him. And the
100%.
only thing he can do is surround himself with people who will allow him to do what he does, who will let him go to the bathroom to take his breaks, who will not call him out on his BS. Like people that will be pacifists to his addiction. And as
Mm-hmm.
long as daddy signs the checks for the legal fees, him and his Hollywood lawyer and Abby Lowell are going to keep cashing in and let this dude
That's what they do.
basically run himself into an early grave.
Well, that's what they do. There's no question about that. I mean, the only thing this guy's missing, along with some talent, is a blonde uh, slamming a 4 iron through a windshield when he's trying to back out of a driveway. Okay, I mean, he is in full on addictive mode. There's no question about it. It's sad to see.
Yep. Uh, that would mean that he'd actually have a real wife. He did at one point, but then he decided to nail his brother's widow.
Right.
Then he decided to nail his brother's widow's sister while
Yeah.
he was trying to marry
Right.
his brother's widow for optics. And then that all fell apart. So we found some South African who is just easy manipulated arm candy.
Don't forget about the stripper he banged, who lives in Arkansas. And now they have a kid. Don't
Well,
forget about that.
we cannot go into his list of strippers because I have actually peeled back the Hunter Biden laptop. And if you're going into the number of prostitutes that dude nailed and strippers, um, we're gonna
He would
be here
make Will Chamberlain blush.
he that dude is he's a total degen, and part of me is like, you do you, buddy. Like fucking set the world on fire. Set your world on fire.
Yeah.
But the problem is that he is hurting a lot of people in the meantime, no more than himself.
Hmm.
And I know that destructive pattern, and it's sad to see that he has no support from his family, and that's the gross part. Similar
Yeah,
to
it's
his
sad.
dad being president, being carted out, basically. Like this dude is a vegetable. He did
Oh,
one
100%.
thing this week, one since Monday, and that was have lunch with Kamala Harris. 3 days at the White House, and our president did one thing, and that was have lunch. That says to me, he's not physically or mentally fit for the job. But there are so many people that are willing, desperately wanting to drag out his old carcass just to keep in power. And it's a shame.
It's quite sad, without question. Yeah. It's really sad actually.
Yeah, it really is, in 10, 20 years, more probably 20 years, uh, we're going to look back and people are going to really start to dig into just how poisonous that family acted in their final years. Like just how bad it got because their family is falling apart. And you don't cheer on a family falling apart, but you do cheer on justice for criminals when it benefits the masses. So I've actually begun writing a script, a pilot episode, um,
It's called
based
Hunter
on
and
their
Me.
family. Oh, it's so good. It's so good. Think of Arrested Development meets Vice. Like it's surrounding it's Hunter Biden's the main character, but you got Ma Biden, you've got uh
Ma Biden.
who's the godmother, you've got you've got Joe Biden, who's kind of the hapless, uh affectionate, overly affectionate father who loves his kids so much he can see no fault in them. Kind of giggling and cackling while his son's uh, in the bathroom at a charity dinner, uh, getting blow done off of his and sending, like I've got it all written out, and it's
You got it all figured out, huh?
yeah,
Oh, there
because
you
if
go.
somebody doesn't turn this into a satire, like it's so easy to do. Like they give me so much material, it's really easy to write. It's
Well, you know what
really
pisses me off is his sugar daddy lawyer in Hollywood is South Park's damn lawyer, or maybe he isn't anymore, but he's made money off of it. And they would have by now already done something on this, and they haven't. I mean, they did it on COVID, they did it on hippies, they did it on, a whole bunch of other stuff, right? And it's like, come on, come on, what are you guys waiting on? So who
yeah.
knows?
It does beg the question why they haven't done it yet, and you've got to wonder if the lawyer connection is playing a part in that. But I have a feeling that at some point, I mean, somebody's got to. Like in the it's going to happen in the next 3 years. But if somebody's bold enough to do it right now, if somebody was bold enough to take my pilot script and greenlight this show, it would blow up like hotcakes. I'm talking real time comedy, and there hasn't been good comedy lately, like real time comedy,
Yeah,
and you can take like it's set pre his election, so we know what is going to happen. So there's just so much that you can do with think of 2019 or
sure.
2020, the year of the election, where Hunter Biden is, what he's doing. He's still the recovered darling of the Biden family. People still think that he is a champion of the Bidens. Little, but they know, thanks to a phone call at brunch, that there is this laptop that he
Right,
misplaced. And
right.
that is where
That's
episode
where it
one.
begins. Fade in laptop store in Rhode Island or wherever the hell it was, Delaware, Delaware.
Can
Um,
have so much fun with that character with his lazy eye and his
with
like
his little tam on his
Irish
head.
beret. Like
Yeah,
he
I
looks
know.
like
He's got
an
a
old timey golfer. There's just
Scottish tam.
so much fun you can have with this. And
He looks like an albino version of Spalding in Caddyshack.
yeah, I mean, there's just so much you can do with it. And if somebody was smart enough to get this script greenlit, it, it would write itself. He's already written it. His
It
life.
probably does. It probably does. It was interesting too. Is again, unfortunately, this lawyer that he's got hanging around his neck is continuing to just tell him what he wants to hear, right? And
Definitely.
so the whole point of the show today, really end of an era, is you have a tired old 80 plus year old dementia laden sitting chief executive in the White House. That story of him screwing up and creating two new wars, I would argue a third war. We are in a proxy war also with Iran and their relevant proxies, as well as in Israel, as well as in Ukraine, and everything all the way back to the border and the economy and so forth and so on. That there's two things. We have seen these tired old um, issues come up time and time again, and we know the outcome. We know what they are, right? Disaster,
Yeah.
death, destruction, inflation, human cost, etc. If I said this to my wife 2 nights ago. I said, if I'm a voter under 40 years of age, all the way down to my son's age, who's 28, I am screaming out for new, young, vibrant leadership, right? There is no way a guy who's 35 like you are, who relates, you're not 40. Okay, you're 40. I know, I'm just teasing
I'm a
you.
40
Like I
year old.
said, 40 and below, right? There's no way you're relating to Joe Biden. You're barely relating to a guy like Donald Trump. You can sort of relate to a Ramaswamy, but he needs 10 more trips around the sun to be taken seriously. DeSantis, Haley, you can kind of relate if you want to a 53-year-old like Gavin Newsom, right? But he's never going to be president. And you got to be screaming out for younger, bolder leadership that actually can convince you they know what the hell they're doing. Um, and the same is true with Lloyd Austin. So Lloyd Austin's in his 70s. Secretary Austin's in his 70s. He went to West Point in the 60s, right? Grew up in the military, forward the last 40 years. He knows better. He knows protocol. He understands exactly what should and shouldn't occur as Secretary of Defense. And yet he blew it off because he's embarrassed to tell people that he has prostate cancer. Well, too bad. That's too bad. And I'm sorry that he had an infection, and I'm sorry that he's still in the hospital. It's a shame, but they have screwed this up so badly. And again, end of an era. Get these people out of here, move on, and get somebody in there, 55 and a little lower, and get these individuals out of there as soon as possible. Thank God we've got less than 10 months before that's going to happen.
Yeah. Lloyd Austin. It was interesting to hear how Kamala responded to that. I don't know if you saw her piece on Substack heading, "Everyone's mad at Lloyd Austin, but I died 3 days ago and no one cares."
Oh God, no, I didn't. Did Harris actually write that, or did
She
her?
wrote a piece with the heading, sorry, it was, "Everyone's mad at Lloyd Austin, but I died 3 weeks ago and no one cares." Like, you
Wow,
couldn't have a heading from a C student in middle school that mirrors that heading. And the fact that she's wasting her time writing op eds instead of serving this country says everything we need to
you're
know.
making my point for me.
So, yeah, it would
100%.
be it would be nice to see some new blood in there. Um Unfortunately, every new candidate is a bozo. Everybody that we're supposed to be relating to, AOC, Jayapal, Jamal Bowman, Lauren
Nope.
Boebert, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Madison Cawthorn, Blinky McBlink with the eye patch, Joe Kent in
Dan Crenshaw.
Washington. Like,
Yeah.
these guys are all cartoon cutouts. None of them. The only one I could stand is Thomas Massey, and he barely does it for me anymore since he's become a highlighted figure. Like, I have no faith in politicians anymore. And it's funny. It's funny because I was watching something about election fraud and
Hmm.
election interference, and it's a great documentary.
So it's something about
Yeah.
Biden's.
What?
It's
Yeah.
something about the Bidens.
Well, it was done in 2018. So it's
Hmm.
more going into Russia, uh, how Russia was able to infiltrate this and that and the other, and all the voting machines, how easily susceptible they are, et cetera,
Oh,
et cetera.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. And all you do, because the whole moral of the story, like, I get that they're kind of slanting it a little bit, they're slanting it toward conservatives somewhat, but they have conservatives on there. Like the dude says, this is a nonpartisan issue. This is, you need to have a democracy or we fall into chaos.
Hmm.
And you literally can see the playbook. You can see the Dems going, oh, ding, ding, ding. This is how we do it.
Hmm.
And your boy,
Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals.
yeah, your boy from Georgia, what's his name?
Brian Kemp.
Brian Kemp, yeah. So
Governor
he was,
Kemp.
yeah, Secretary of State,
Hmm.
going to be governor, overlooking
Hmm.
his own election. Red flag. Red flag. Sorry, red flag. But the funny thing is that you hear the calls for corruption, but when my governor, who was the Secretary of State before she
Hmm.
ran against Larry Kate or Carrie Lake, did the exact same thing.
100%.
Cricket.
Yep.
And I'm sitting here and I'm looking at these two. I'm like, they literally took, it's like they watched this documentary and were like, how can we do it? And I reminded my lady, why is it that they always blame the other side for the things that they're doing themselves? And it's every time you can literally write it down. If
Hmm.
a Democrat is blaming a Republican for something lascivious, you can damn well take it to the bank that they are doing it themselves.
Classic deflection. That's
Classic.
classic political deflection. That's all it is. That's
Mm-hmm.
all it is. I mean, the whole Fannie Willis crap that she created by screwing a married guy and hiring him with taxpayer money, who's still on the payroll, by the way, has blown up for them. And she's blaming Republicans.
Like, this is stuff. I told you, they're writing the material for us. Like the
Yep.
fact that this broad, who,
Hmm.
keep in mind, has visited the White House with, not only that, Letitia James in New York just confirmed she's visited the White House. Not Fannie Willis. I don't know if Fannie Fan has quite yet, but her lover boy,
Um, 4 times. He
Fannie.
visited twice. Yeah.
Okay, so you've got a president who says,
And Letitia
we have
James was there four
no
times.
part in this. This is completely independent.
Oh, that's
She goes to
bullshit.
visit the White House 4 times.
It's
She
bullshit.
hires the guy piping her down, who's
Mm-hmm.
never tried a felony case, who's a mere injury lawyer, pays him $1 million so he can take her on cruises and bone her on
Mm-hmm.
exotic islands,
Right. All on the taxpayer's dime.
all on a taxpayer's dime. Like, you can't write this stuff.
Don Juan, what's up, baby? The
Turn on,
Juan, he's
turn
muted.
on your microphone, DW.
DW.
Come on, D Dub. Take it
He'll
off
get it
mute.
figured out.
Take it off
No,
mute.
you are, Rick, you're 100% right. And the interesting thing about all of that is now the attorney general in Georgia, who wants to be governor, who probably doesn't have an ice cube's chance in hell, he's a Republican, has a responsibility to investigate and subsequently fire Fannie Willis. We'll see how that plays out. That'll be another hosanna of racism that'll be, thrown out and allowed to be gobbled up on the street by red meat eating leftists. But at the same time, these guys continue to screw themselves over and over again because the plan that they had or have still to get Donald Trump out of the election is falling apart because it's really not a plan. It's just a bunch of lawyer hoops that have been agreed to in private chats and private meetings, etc., and then laid upon the discerning or not discerning public. I got to point one thing out for you, though. I want to make sure that you see this. If you don't or hadn't seen it, I'm going to send it to you because I videotaped it. I don't usually watch Jesse Waters' show because I think he's annoying, and he's
Yeah.
just, it's like, okay, kid, grow up a little bit, and then I can take you seriously.
Yeah.
Or just start selling funny hats on the show because you're not a serious person.
He
When they do
definitely
the
has an arrogancy issue. Like,
it's all right. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, it'll last or it'll sell, and it is what it is. Um, but when little Johnny goes out on the street and does what Waters used to do when he was with O'Reilly, when he was his
man on the street.
man on the street stuff, um, he um, he was in Brooklyn, and the question was, "Hey, Obama just is going to give your neighborhood 25 million bucks," and everybody was excited. It was all black people, and then he told them it was for electric scooters. Did you see that?
No.
So, I talk to people when I'm out in the street. I'm around the country, and I get a pulse of what they're thinking and calculate that into my determinations of who's going to win or who's going to lose in a race, blah blah blah. And over the last decade, you started to see black folks kind of go, maybe they are using our ass, but not enough to make an appreciable difference. In 2012, Mitt Romney, the stick man from Boston/Utah, got a little bit of the vote. 2016, Donald Trump got 11, 11 or 15, something like that, of the black vote. Now he's polling in the 30s, between the mid 20s and mid 30s. I have seen. You should see that video. I will send it to you. There are more black folks who are, Joe Biden's full of shit. Joe Biden's too old. I'm not voting for Joe Biden. And every single one of them, of age 50 to 20, was like, Trump, 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 Trump. Who are you voting for? That tide is massively turned because people can remember what 3 years ago was like versus what it's like right now. It's unbelievable what's happening. It's all over the country.
Yes, it is. And we'd like to welcome Don Juan to the program. Don,
Brother
can you hear?
Don.
Can you hear me okay?
We can now, Don. Thank you.
Oh, perfect.
Thumbs
Yeah,
up.
I mean, it's an interesting subject, and trust me, it's one I think about all the time. Not so much whether or not African Americans are going to vote Republican per se. The
Hmm.
the point I've always been making to friends and family who wonder whatever happened to me and why did I go from Democrat to Republican. It's a simple thing. It's not some. I wasn't overcome with some sense of changing my ideology. Just that, unfortunately, the Democratic Party no longer aligns with the values I was raised with.
Ding,
No.
ding, ding.
Boom.
And that's all there is to it. People keep wondering, well, how could you? There was nothing that changed here except the Democrats. They're no longer family oriented. They de-emphasize, if not mock, organized religion,
Hmm.
and they don't. And their mindset is to tell, in particular, black people, don't worry about it. You don't have to strive to succeed. The government will take care of you, and
Oh yeah,
that's the way I was
dependency for
raised.
life.
Yep.
Yep,
And
100%.
the even worse part for egomaniacs like myself, I can't help but to put myself in your shoes. And when I hear them say, you can't accomplish anything without our help, you are peasants, you're livestock, you cannot do anything without our help. The only reason that any of you have succeeded is because of the work that we've done, not in fact the work that you've done. And that
100%.
would piss me off because I'd be like, hey, jackass, guess what? I put in the hours, I paid the bills, I did it, okay? I didn't have handouts. I didn't ask you to do what you're doing. I did it, okay? And I can't understand why white people don't understand how racist they are being when they spout this sort of rhetoric that, yeah, BLM taglines. Yeah, we have nothing but white privilege, and these poor African Americans over here and these poor Hispanics over there, they can't succeed without our help. Their holier than thou altruism shtick is disgusting. And to think that we are actually different creatures biologically that one can't do without is, it's wrong, it's sickening, and it's evil, because I have watched every shade, color, gender of person pick themselves up by their bootstraps. If they put in the work, they always succeed. Period.
Wait, and I mean, it's really simple. And oh, by the way, here's America, Black America's dirty little secret. We want white privilege too. The
Thousand
deal
percent.
is that as we recognize it, and black people who succeed acknowledge it or recognize it. They may not acknowledge it publicly.
Yeah,
Again, you've said it, Mark. Put in the work. It's never
right.
going to be. I've lived long enough to go through the Great Society and all those efforts, which I think were fairly positive at the outset, but they haven't worked. So why would you continue? And to me, progressive Democrats, liberals, I think now they just cynically believe if they just say a few words or, racism, white supremacy, and so that black people will genuflect and go to the polls and vote for them. I mean, that's what they believe. And unfortunately, you still have they're black, they're people at the grassroots, black people who work every day and think about who they vote for, every cycle, but they get told by certain well, I won't call them race hustlers, even though I just did, certain
Yeah, they're race
black
hustlers.
individuals in the community or on TV or whatever, telling them what to do. I was watching what's the guy's name? I call him a kid because he's at least 20 years younger than me. Charlemagne the God. He was making
Yep.
headlines the past week about dissing Biden or saying, "Oh, I'm not so sure I can support Joe." First of all, and I saw him on MSNBC later on that day when the story first broke. Well, now he's qualifying it. He's saying, "Well, given the alternative, what else can
Who's
I
the
do?"
Antichrist?
And oh, by the way, the new mantra is on the black left is, yeah, we need to vote for Joe Biden, even though we don't like him, because, wait for it, we're going to save democracy. I'm,
Right.
I'm sorry. You know,
So
for black
Juan,
people, they need something a little bit more tangible than democracy. We need
yeah,
jobs, we need opportunities, or excuse me,
Damn right.
we need to take it upon ourselves to seize those opportunities instead of waiting around for
yeah,
some,
Juan, don't you
liberal
guys
program.
have those opportunities? Am
Yeah,
I missing
they're there.
something?
Nope.
Are there no opportunities for African Americans in 2023?
Correct.
Again, again, to me, it's all, for me personally, it's history, things I've already seen and experienced and to one degree or another done.
And that's a
I
point
see.
that I want to get to ask
Go
you
ahead.
about. One is,
Sure.
I don't mean to interrupt, but
That's okay.
we
Go,
can admit,
brother.
okay, that racism has existed in America
Yep.
in all colors, shapes, and forms. Like, I knew white people that hated black people. I knew Mexicans that hated black people. I knew blacks that hated white people and Mexicans. Like, there's always going to be that underlying hatred.
Correct.
Okay. It's going to exist. But would you say that the same racist atmosphere in the 90s that saw the LA riots and things, Rodney King, things of those natures, do we live in that same racist climate right now? Are whites as racist in the 90s as they are in 2023?
Well, for me, all that time kind of gets compressed because my view of changes in society go back to the 65 Watts riots,
Yep.
which occurred literally down the street from me.
Yep.
And so 1990, 1990, I was just getting married and getting a house, and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
I had to conclude that I put in the work, done all the right things, and what have you. First of all, with regard to racism, generally speaking, when people ask me about it, I say two words: so what? I mean, there
Right.
are always going to be
Right.
obstacles out there that exist. They're not the same
Right.
obstacles that existed 30, 40, 50 years ago.
No.
So if you're not,
And Don, you just said it. You were getting a house in the 1990s. So first of all, your mortgage was 15% interest at a
right? Oh, well,
minimum,
yeah,
maybe 12.
thanks for reminding me. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Sorry, I didn't mean to bring that
That's
boil
okay.
back. But the bottom line is you just broke through the bullshit myth of black man can't do the American dream. Of course you can. And so what I was going to really quickly quote on, and I'm going to show you guys this video, is in 1965, after we passed most of the Great Society programs between 64 with the Civil Rights Act and 65 with the Medicare Act, just 7 years later, Don, as I said before, Rico, you heard me play this song before. Stevie Wonder wrote Big Brother. Same bullshit as we're seeing today. And what I saw in this video is black people are done. They are done with the plantation mentality, and they don't want handouts. They want jobs and an opportunity. So listen to this really quickly and tell me what you think of it. Let me see if I can.
But I also don't see the correlation between Joe Biden and being president. I don't know who put that motherfucker in office, but it wasn't me. So you don't like him? Who would you rather? Cheaper gas or electric scooter chargers?
Cheaper gas. Why wouldn't we want cheaper gas? Like, how would the scooters benefit if they don't deliver?
You can't really have cheaper gas because they're trying to get more money out of you than build electric cars.
Cheaper gas, definitely, because my man drives.
How's Joe Biden doing? He's too old. But everybody elected him, so that's y'all fault. He's sitting there lying to people.
He's the worst president that we ever had. Joe Biden, please go back to Delaware because New York City, you have no idea what we need.
He's a slimy mother. You know? He take you out to lunch and stick a fork up your ass right after. Who do you want to win the 2024 election? Joe Biden or Donald Trump?
Donald Trump. I want Donald Trump. Trump.
That happens to be me, in case you forget.
When he was in, it was no prom. Prom was down.
Uncle Donald. Okay. That's a nice guy. Trump is straight up and down, like 6 o'clock. At least I know what I get when it comes to him.
I was more comfortable with Donald Trump in the office.
I'm not voting for Joe Biden. And you ain't blind. Trump, that's right, I said. That's right, I said. What do you like about Donald Trump? He don't move. He don't care.
Okay. How many age demographics were there? 3?
Yep.
Right? All of those folks who are smart folks, they're on the street in New York. Okay, they're not chumps, right? But a 20-year-old kid actually knows where an 80-year-old dude who lives in the White House comes from, Delaware. Props, right? These other kids that are around the same age, they know that old guy, and the Democrats are completely full of bullshit. And these 2 older dudes who are probably in their 50s are like, yeah, we're done with that, right? And I'm seeing that multiply. That was one of the most powerful little 2.5-minute clips of video I've seen in a long time.
Other than the one that I made, which you guys, if you haven't seen, need to check out because it highlights.
Why is it always about you, Rico?
Because I'm better than everybody. I highlight the white altruism grift because we've been hearing about how having identification is racist for voting. Having voting ID cards is racist. So I compiled a video of white people from the most liberal of campuses giving their reasoning why Black people can't get IDs. They're just not smart enough. They don't know how to use the technology. They don't know how to find a DMV. Just the most blatant racist shit you could possibly hear of.
Insane.
And then I put together clips of Black people being asked if they have IDs. And they're all befuddled by the question, like, are you an idiot? Of course I have an ID. Like, what do you think? I mean, like, I'm talking from people on the streets selling dope all the way up. Like,
so
in the hoods of New York, like in the hoods, and they, all of them across the board say they can get it. So my question for my friends who think it's racist to ask for voting IDs, I posed the question, why is it when Black people tell you they can get it and that it's in fact offensive to behave and think that they don't have the brains or drive or willpower to do this? Why do you feel holier than thou and say, nope, let's disregard their opinion? We actually know what's best for you. And they usually fall flat on their face. They either try to change the subject, they'll do a name call, but the question never gets answered.
No, it's because they've been indoctrinated. But Rick, did you notice that when the probably 40-ish, maybe 50-year-old dude goes, yeah, I like Donald Trump, he's straight up like 6 o'clock. Did you notice how Don and I reacted? So that colloquialism was embedded in me a long time ago because Don and I come from the same era, right? I mean, you get it, Rick, because you're a smart guy. But Don and I, it was like smelling toast or your favorite meal. It's like, oh yeah, I got that, right? I mean, Don and I come from an era, and you're old enough to do this yourself, but we come from an era where you just call bullshit and just listen to common sense. It either works or it doesn't work. There's no gray area. And that's what so impressed me about just that little vignette of individuals is people are now being given in this end of an era in politics the contrasts that are going to set up the election in 6 months between a former president and a current one, most likely, where you're going to be able to look at how cheap was gas 4 years ago, 3 years ago, groceries, food, housing, etc., and go, yeah, I'm going over there, even though this guy kind of sucks a little bit, versus what you know you're going to get if you go 4 more years of the old mumbler in chief, and people will not want that. And I think that that's the direction of where things are going, notwithstanding that these old antiquated bozos that are in politics and their children, who are not young themselves, they need to go exit stage left.
Well,
And I think that's going to happen. Anyway.
I was just going to say, I mean, you believe, I think that there's going to be a reckoning at some point because you can't keep pulling the same old con and expect certainly black people to continue to fall for it, certainly in the numbers that Democrats would like. They're clearly in a free fall panic because I think the realization has come upon them, you know what, the BS isn't working as well, or it's not working as much. We have no more BS to try out there that we think will allow us to, get black people to bite on so that they'll turn out to vote for us.
Rick, what do you think about that, bud?
So, Don Juan, you said that you grew up near the Watts riots.
73rd and Central. Can't get any more South Central than that.
So here we have an African-American male who grew up during racist times, right by a cultural infliction point. How were you able to make it out? Because as I've been told by certain media outlets, it's impossible. Like the only people that make it out are rappers, entertainers, and politicians. So how were you able to make it out?
It's fundamental. And I mean, I started out, I mean, I'm lucky. I've been blessed in life from the outset. I had 2 hardworking, God-fearing parents. Simple as that. My parents, certainly my father, growing up in rural Arkansas during the Depression.
During the Depression, yeah.
He saw things that I never had to confront. Yeah. But he had an idea and an ideal in his head about how he wanted the rest of his life to go. He could have been a lot of negative things for all the things that he was exposed to or how he was treated. But he had the attitude that, you know what, I want to get a job. I want to marry the right woman. I want to, work hard. I want to raise a family. That's my goal in life. And thank goodness, I had 2 parents who wanted that for themselves and in turn wanted to, give me the value so that I could seek those things for myself, knowing full well that there were going to be people out there or institutions or what have you that will try to work against you. I mean, I understood that from day one. But my attitude has been, and I certainly would think by now it's been borne out, is sometimes you got to fight. But again, you have to recognize when certain things get in your way. Because I've never been concerned with attitudes. If somebody wants to put a sheet over their head and burn a cross on their lawn, God bless them. As long as they stay out of my way, because I'm headed in a certain direction.
Boom.
And I'm going to be fine with you as long as you do what you're going to do and stay out of my way. If you don't, and you think you can impede me from where I think I need to go, then we're going to have a problem. Absolutely. But other than that, like I said, there's nothing scary to me. Certainly, even in the 1960s and 70s, by the time I got to high school and out to college, I wasn't afraid of racism. My mindset was, when I confront it, how do I defeat it? And I took a militant attitude that, yeah, okay, fine, racism. I see it. It's not like it was in the 40s and 50s. Nobody's going to lynch me just by wanting to eat at a lunch counter or go to a school. So you know what? I'm taking advantage of that. You opened up just enough of an opportunity for me to get where I need to go, and I'm headed straight for that.
Damn right.
You know, and oh, by the way, you know, when I got to college, certainly at a school like USC, where it was like maybe 1.5%, 2% African American, most of the people that I either went to class with or whatever were white. But the interesting thing was, and irrespective of whatever their socioeconomic status was, they're all the same. The kids who were good students and generally good people had two hardworking parents, you know, and to one degree or another were church going, whatever, you know, and that's so when I had that sense of what I was about, I wasn't insecure about being black in any environment. Like, you know, I'm prepared. I believe I can compete. So for any African American out there, you know, who has feelings about, well, the country's racist or it's this or it's that, it's like, you know, I tell certainly younger people, you gotta shake yourself. You know, if you got to compete, it's as simple as that. There's no other way around it. I wish, for your sake, in terms of what you think you believe, that were true. But you're gonna have to work, and if you work and you stay fixed on what the goal is, eye on the prize, to borrow the phrase, you're gonna get what you want out of life. But if you think a good life or a perfect life is the absolute, unequivocal absence of any discernible racism, then you're kidding yourself. It's always
No,
going to
that
be
doesn't
there.
exist.
Yeah. So
That
it's like,
doesn't
you know,
exist.
deal with what's going on, determine for yourself what your goals are, and go about trying to reach them. There's no better advice, because that was what I was told. So it's distressing to me when I see young college educated African Americans who act as if, oh my God, you know, they're responding to things like microaggression. I don't even know what that is. I went to college. What the hell's a microaggression? Now
It's a made up bullshit term. It doesn't mean anything.
somebody, you know, older times with a noose and a bunch of guys with sheets over their heads, that would be a problem.
Yeah.
But something that is not tangible, that somebody might say or you might think they think, if that's getting in your way, you're gonna fail in life no matter what.
Don, I get upset when Rick
fail.
uses the wrong adjective sometimes, but that's just me.
Yeah. So I want to thank you for your honesty and your candid responses, Don. And the way I framed the questions, I don't want you to think that I was purposefully being offensive because I know the answers, but sometimes
I'm hard to offend.
No, you're not, dude.
It's such an easy question, but sometimes it needs to come from the mouth of somebody who's spoken it, who's lived it, who's experienced it. And it's so important to hear that, hey, you're supposed to be an anomaly. In their eyes, you're an anomaly. You came from South Central. You came out of a time when racism was so prevalent and somehow managed to make something of yourself. And the way they sell it is that's not supposed to be able to happen without the help of the holier than thous. And you are living proof that it is possible. You just gave the blueprint to Americans, not to white or black or Hispanic or gay or straight. You gave the blueprint for every human how to succeed in life. Success does not know skin color or gender or microaggressions. It knows hard work and laziness, period. And I want to thank you for answering these questions that some of my friends really need to hear. Some of my friends really need to hear your responses because
you know what,
they
Rick?
are so bought into that bullshit that they
But
don't know
that
their ass from their elbows.
they don't. But that 25-year arc between when you were born and when Don and I were already 25 years old, it's incumbent on them to actually learn it. So while Don was in South Central, at the same time, I was in Anaheim, California, living across the street from Disneyland. Okay. Little leagues, parks, parents, families, neighborhood, yada, 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 right? Two older sisters, so they were in high school. And I mean, I was at the beach literally every day in the summer and on the weekends. Sisters were the babysitters, blah, 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 right?
Gosh damn
So,
white privilege.
right. We just called it a normal living.
Brag
And
about it some
so
more, Whitey.
while Don was living a life because of two strong parents, and I've been fortunate enough to be around Hispanic folks, and because I lived in Southern California, Black folks, etc., all the same, who had the same experience. None of us really thought about racism because our parents gave us the tools to think otherwise. We didn't think about victimhood and all that kind of stuff. And so between that period of the 1964 Civil Rights Act and you've heard me say this before, about the mid 90s, we solved all those problems from the preceding 100 years before the Civil Rights Act was signed into law. The race hustlers, and you saw me post this the other day, the new ones like Mark Lamont Hill and Ibrahim X. Kendi, along
Right.
with Chubby Al and what's the broad's name that wrote the 1619 Project?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, whatever
I
the hell her name
I
is.
don't even try to remember her name.
Yeah, I don't even
Doesn't
know her.
matter.
And normally I would go, oh yeah, it's so and so. But they're
She's
all
got
just
red.
race
She's got red.
hustlers.
She's got red highlights in her hair. That much I know.
Right,
Other than that, I
right,
don't recall anything else.
right. Trying to make a buck off of
Right.
dividing people. And DEI is racism. DEI is the seventh deadly sin, which is envy. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so at the end of the day, people like Don and I, we already know who we are and where we come from. Rick and your generation and those below you, you have to subsequently teach your friends the history of the country because unfortunately, Don, they never learned it, right?
Yeah, I mean it's sometimes it's distressing when I see certain things on television that indicate to me that in my heart, I have to believe that people know better. I
Mm-hmm.
think they feel as if I'm affiliated with a particular party, therefore I have to say these things. I don't believe that even though there may be racism, that it affects me to the extent that my party or my
Yeah,
ideology wants people to believe. So I
right,
just kind of go along, and it kind of keeps me in with the group, and people don't look at me odd or funny, and that's kind of the way it works. But again, it's not just me. I mean, I went to high school with a bunch of people, a bunch of kids who I'm been friends with for 50 years or more now,
right.
and with very few exceptions, it's the same story. A very good friend of
Yep.
mine who lived in a one parent household, and again, this is why I mean I have such strong feelings about what my parents were. Told me we reconnected about 5 years ago over Facebook. He says, he says, um, it was horrible at home. It just was. He said, but when I come by your house, or even when you weren't there, and I'd knock on the door and your mom would be there and whatever, she would, either cook me a meal or make me feel,
Right, right.
right at home. And he said that kind of got me through to where I could go to school and feel good about myself, and then
Mm-hmm.
have some ideas because I saw their example, as to
Right.
what a good life could be. And it's like, again, I made me feel especially proud of what they've been. But
We
that's it.
we did that in our home, and I carried that tradition on from. I mean, you guys know I love to cook, so I carried that tradition on with my kids and their friends. Our house over in River Creek had the most bicycles in the driveway. Right, everybody knows what that means, and so there were. It's like we're going over to Mr. Mark's, and my kids had two. Had these two walkie talkies when they
Mm.
were little kids. One at home, so I could just check in, and they were out around the neighborhood, right? Because we didn't live in the '60s where it's like, hey, come home when the street lights come on, right?
Yeah.
No, you know how that
Right.
is, right?
Hmm.
So we had these, and obviously I still have them today, and I can guarantee you that my son Sean, when he has children in the next few years, and today I just put out a save the date uh, invitation to a number of people for his engagement party in April. So I'm quite proud of
Congratulations.
that. But in a few years, thank you very much. He will be carrying on similar behaviors, and so we got a golf clap on that one. But it's Rick. It's what I was saying a minute ago. I know you had to jump out just for a second. Is your burden, and it really isn't a burden because you're kind of a guy who will take this on as a challenge, is to teach your peers who don't know these things about these things, and challenge them to incorporate it in themselves, so that it isn't just about what's affecting them, it's about how they can affect change, and create a better environment in the world around them, and then teach lessons to that next generation. That's quite important because we don't have the problems of blacks at the lunch counter, blacks at a drinking
Right.
fountain, blacks at a. I mean, just watch the movie Green Book. Rick,
Hmm.
have you seen Green Book? Have you ever seen that, buddy? Yeah,
Yes.
just screen the movie Green Book with 5 of your friends who don't know what the three of us know, and then have a discussion about it because that doesn't exist anymore. But it sure as hell did, and it made the country what it is today. But the country is going to have challenges going forward because we're a free society, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah. We are a free society and we have to protect that free society. And we all kind of subscribe to the live and let live. You don't impede on me, I'm not going to impede on you.
Mm-hmm.
Once you cross that line, I got the right to protect my own. But I'm not going to go across that line, go out of my way just to impede somebody else. And it's important that we get perspective from old generations, young generations, new generations. And the key is communication. The key is not to talk at people, but to talk with people. And for the great philosophers of our time, how do we organically implant these ideas of change, real change, good change, into the minds of people? How do we get them to consume the information in a way that they feel like they themselves have come to a conclusion rather than somebody talking at them and telling
Mm-hmm.
the conclusion? And that's the $1 million question.
Well, one way to
Well,
do that, my friend, is not erase history,
right.
and to explain history to folks that haven't experienced it, the value of what those experiences caused, and how you move that value forward. But
Well,
you don't
obviously,
erase history.
yeah, I'm not talking about the substance. I'm talking about the rhetoric. I'm talking
No, I
about the
understand.
actual communication.
I understand.
How do you talk? How do you verbiage? How do you sound? The tone of your voice. All of
Right.
these things can be off-putting. How do you look when you speak? There's certain communication skills that people haven't learned. They just think you can go into a conversation with a furrowed brow and growl at people until they submit. And that's not how you get it done.
That's
Yes,
because people under 30 years of age communicate with
Right.
this
That's it.
stupid thing right here.
Yep.
we
Did
can't
you see
even
the
go into that
22-year-old
right
that
now.
was? Did you see the 22-year-old that was 6 days on the job in this graphic arts company in Tennessee, and she was escorted out the door? And then she did a post as to not understanding why, and of course 300,000 people, on TikTok went crazy over it. But if you don't teach a kid about that value when they're a teenager, let alone an adolescent, they're going to have that experience. They're not going to know how to behave in a mature
I,
environment.
I would say this much because, speaking to people and engaging them verbally on almost anything, but certainly with regard to things like race, it goes back again. I will always reference what my parents taught me in this context because I had conversations with them as I was growing up, and certainly when I was transitioning to go to college. Uh, the instruction that I got was not the one that African American parents are supposed to give their kids today about worrying about the cops and all that stuff. My mom sat me down and gave me a simple lesson about how to approach going into a new environment where there were different types of people. And she put the onus on me with this simple phrase. She said, just be a good witness. You're a good person. You go to church on Sunday. You interact with people. They're going to see that. Some people aren't going to accept it right away, but you just have to be yourself. And if you're a good witness, and she meant in the context, the biblical context necessarily, but that was her guidance for me. So so when I transitioned to college, being around being in an environment where it was 98% non-African American wasn't
Right.
that big of a deal to me. It wasn't anything at all. I'll leave you with this other real quick story. I graduated college, and my first job in college after I got out of actually it was before I graduated. I started working for a manufacturing company out in Santa Monica, California, and it was a job in their accounting department and what their sales auditing department was something they had back then. It was just all calculating sales on a 10 key adding machine. I had no experience at any of that. And so I do the interview, and I'm positive. Like, you tell me what I need to do. I'm going to work hard. I'm going to learn whatever it is I need to learn, even if I
Yep.
have to stay late and not get paid for it to do this job. So I get hired, and it's a 6-person department. I am not only the only I'm in a department of 6 people. There are 5 white females, and it's and me. I walked into that situation not being concerned about, oh my God, there are these white people, white women, whatever. They were just people, and we're all doing a job. So I show up and I'm interacting and I'm talking and I'm working with people and I'm just being myself. And when I talk about things relative to, referencing my experiences, they were things that people could identify with. So it's like, my point is, I didn't come to any of those situations as much as I do now, worrying about how people may perceive of me as being black.
Mm-hmm.
If they do, that's going to be their problem. Otherwise, I'm just going to, be myself. And I was going to make one more point though. For a lot of reasons, Jackie Robinson was my idol growing up as a kid by being the example that he was. But the thing I admired most about Robinson wasn't that he broke the color barrier or that he was brave in doing what he did to achieve what he had. But Robinson, he cut that famous deal with Branch Rickey where he was going to take all this abuse
Yep.
and not respond. That was the deal. Well, the deal was for like a couple of years. When the deal was up, Robinson goes to Ricky and the Dodgers and says, I fulfilled my promise. Now I'm just going to be me. And as a result, Robinson, he said, look, I'm like any other ball player, right? So that means I can be a jerk. I can be aggressive. I can talk back. I can spit on a guy. I can spike a guy. And that's what he went out and did.
Mhm.
And so much so that that's at one point the Dodgers say, we need to get rid of this guy. And ultimately they attempted to trade him. And when they did, that's when he retired. But again,
Yep.
to me,
And
the
that's a
example of
story for
Robinson was,
another time.
yeah, I don't know. I was just saying it's the example to me was, as a black person, don't just lower yourself just trying to be good. Just try, you want to be like everybody else. So you're gonna have your own flaws and just act as yourself. That's my point.
Absolutely. So I've got two videos I want to play real quick. One for you, Don Juan, and one for you, Mark. And I want 60 seconds.
60.
60 seconds of what you think when you see this. Okay. Let's see here if I can do this correctly. Beep bop boop. Boo doo doo doo. So what do you think when you see that, Don Juan?
I mean, I get it. It's an attitude that a lot of black people have about race and so forth. It's like, okay, I'm going to show you. I'm going to discriminate against you just so I can be like you instead of taking the more positive, which is I'm going to be myself and we're going to get along. So it's just. But again, it's not real. They don't believe that.
Do
Nope.
you do you think that's a good business model? Because that was a black-owned business launch party. Do you think that's the way to go with black-owned businesses, or do you agree with black-owned businesses in general?
Well, I certainly believe that there should be businesses owned by black people, but
Yeah.
it's common knowledge if you're running a business, you don't want to alienate what a potential customer base. So if you're going to take that tack, you're automatically saying, I don't know, 50% of the population out there, I'm going to say right away, you're not welcome. I don't want your business.
Mhm.
Okay, then fine. You're going to have a small little business to the extent that it'll exist for however long you want it to, and that's as far as it's going to grow. So if that's all you want, then at best, that's all you're going to get.
Thank you. And now, Mark, this one's for you.
You are so thoughtful.
You legally have to give me a month. No, I don't, because you haven't paid one brown penny. I'm not obligated to, and I can't afford to. Guess what? Doesn't matter. You can't just tell me I have 2 weeks to find somewhere. You've had over a month. And no, I haven't. Look, you have done nothing but dig your heels in and try and make me feel bad about your. No, I haven't. I've been trying to educate you. No, your education is brainwashing. No, it's not. You just won't listen to me. No, I'm not going to listen to this crap. Now you talk. I have schizophrenia. I don't care what you have. I don't. It doesn't mean we live in squalor. And it doesn't mean you're a bully. I'm not even a bully. You literally detonate me, misgender me, and tell me that, like.
What do you think when you see that, Mark?
Well, you've known me long enough. You know I don't suffer fools at all. And this extraordinarily unprepared, indoctrinated child who's now in her early to mid 20s is behaving like an 11-year-old because no one held her accountable. No one made her take a time out and sit on the stairs instead of whipping her, because I don't truck with that. You teach children, you don't beat knowledge into them. And she is where she is because the time frame between when I graduated from high school. Don, you graduated in 73 or 74?
High school,
Yeah,
1970.
70. Okay, so you're 6 years older than I am. Okay. So I graduated in 76. So Rick, you were born in 83, right?
Yes.
Yeah, about the time you were 4 years old, education in this country started to fall off of a fucking cliff. And it finally fell off the cliff in about 2008, 2007. Fortunately, we moved out to the suburbs of Virginia in 99. Brand new schools, brand new teachers, lots of money. You could hire the best talent. So my kids graduated from high school 2013, 2015, respectively. They actually got an education, also thanks to me and my wife. She never did. Anyone that entered kindergarten 2005 forward is screwed if
Okay.
they didn't have parents that taught them every single day and held them to a standard every single day of excellence. That individual, just her blue hair alone, because as my son would remark whenever he would see one of these kids, is, honey, you can color your hair as much as you want, but daddy's not coming home.
Ba-da-ba.
Is ill-equipped to deal with reality. And that's
Okay.
a sad, sad thing.
Don Juan, it's easy to look at the blue-haired creature and point out her faults, but how much of this blame falls on the parents? And is the parent being unreasonable by kicking her daughter out or giving her a 2 weeks notice?
I mean, my view of it is no. I mean, when you have kids and from day one, you fall in love with them, for all the right reasons, but you have to have in your back of your mind, and I certainly did when the time occurred to me, that you have to project forward and think of what you want that child to turn into. And from there, those are all the instructions you're going to need. If you think, and I think a lot of parents have, I don't want to be, I want to be my child's friend. I want to get along. Well, that's not part of the job. At the end of the day, when what you want ideally is whatever you got to go through and how hard or harsh you need to be, you want them on the other end of it at 18, 19, 20, and saying, wow, you know what? My parents were real tough on me, but thank God they were. Because when you're being tough and you're dispensing, discipline or whatever, kids aren't going to like it. That's just their nature, and they're going to
Mhm.
fight, and they're going to scream, and they're going to yell, and they're going to insult you, and all of a sudden, that little bundle that you loved so much is an evil monster. You have to stand strong. It's as simple as that.
Yep.
Again, you have to know what the rules are. I read one book on parenting, just one, and it told me everything I needed to know that I didn't already know. And it was what was his name? Dr. James Dobson. He
Mm-hmm.
used to do a program called Focus on the Family.
But
He wrote
on
a
the
book
family.
in the late '80s called "Parenting Isn't for Cowards." Only book I've read, and it scared me to death. But it told me in broader terms than even I had realized, this is what the job's going to be. Yeah, again, they're going to be cute little bundles, and they're God's gift. But you're going to have to spank them on occasion, or you're going to have to get into it with them on occasion, because you're going to have to dictate for them what you think their path needs to be. So, like that young lady's case, again, as a parent, when you reach that limit, you're going to have to say, you know what? I hate to see you go.
Yeah. Thank
That's
you.
it.
So I'll give you a quick anecdote. So my son, 2019, so 4 years ago, little tear, 24 years of age. We buy the house in 2018 here on the farm. He's working on Capitol Hill. He moves in with us, and Sean and I are extremely close. And I said to him one day, I said, you got to go, don't you? He goes, yeah, Dad, I do. I mean, Sean and I literally talk to each other 4 or 5 times a week at a minimum, right? Not including texting and all that. And you cannot have a relationship with your child that has that understanding without being offended or emotionally unstable if you haven't brought them up the right way. Unfortunately, that young lady, when presented that with that reality, absent her making that decision on herself, has not been brought up that properly, and that's a shame. And so, disproportionately on the parents in parenting, 100% her responsibility to know what her path forward is from listening to her parents and having guidance, neither of which occurred, which is glaringly obvious. But it doesn't mean it's too late for her. It just depends on what she wants.
Thank you, gentlemen.
You're welcome. Listen, I always enjoy talking with you guys. I really appreciate it, as always. We had another segment to talk about today, which we will pick up in the next iteration of Read the Room. But I can't thank you enough for getting on today, as always. I want both of you guys to have a wonderful weekend. You over there in Nevada, in the
Right.
warm weather. Well, it's a little chilly there. You're
No,
getting
it
a little,
was 28 degrees this morning when I
yeah,
was
you're
coming
getting a
to
little
work.
cold there in the lower desert. Rick's up there bundled up in the northern part of Arizona, and we have a large winter zone of cold coming this way. But thank God we have rain out of the Gulf of Mexico that's going to push it up above us. So it'll be a little frosty. But you guys have a fantastic weekend. I really appreciate both of you guys. My brother in Arizona, I will talk to you soon. Don Juan, always a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I
And
appreciate you. I appreciate you guys letting me come on and kind of
heck
blather
yeah.
on it. I get
No,
pretty
we love
emotional
it.
about stuff like race and parenting. So this was
Mhm.
like just stuff on my chest, and I appreciate the fact that you allowed me to kind of vent a little bit today.
Absolutely,
100%.
man. That's why we're here, is to get a finger on the pulse of what people are thinking. And anytime somebody can be candid and honest, you got plenty of time to speak on here. So
Boom.
thanks again.
All
Appreciate it.
right. You guys have a great weekend. We'll talk
All
soon.
right. All righty.
See you guys.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
North America.